This episode of the Fight Within podcast is presented to you by Meguiar's. For over 115 years, Meguiar's has been carefully creating and producing advanced formulas with cutting-edge chemistry to deliver a show car perfect appearance. Whether you're showing on the fairway, finalizing your car for auction, or simply getting your beloved car ready for a weekend drive, Meguiar's is ready to help with their premium car care products to make every automotive surface look its absolute best. Meguiar's, reflect your passion. Make sure to visit them at meguiars.com.
What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Fight Within podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Frankie Quiroz, or Quiroz, as I would say it. He is the co-founder of Tuned in Tokyo, and funny enough, he knows my brother-in-law, Billy Hinzo, who we've had on the show, and we have some similar connections, and I literally messaged you on Instagram to be on here, so I appreciate you getting back to me, man. I know how many messages you probably get, and thank you for your time, and thank you for being here, and let's dive right in.
Bro, glad to be here. Appreciate you having me on this.
Of course.
And hopefully we can help somebody out today.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you're at now.
So I've been building fashion and apparel brands for over 10 years. So I'm 30 years old. I started selling shirts out of my trunk when I was 16 years old. And you know, a lot of people, well, before I even drop that, I always start off with I'm co-founder of the two biggest companies I've ever started were Tuned in Tokyo and Drip Creations,
Okay.
streetwear companies in the fashion and apparel space, and we sell over $10 million a year in sales. So we sell tons of products. I'm known for selling more than 500 shirts per day with
Nice.
Tuned in Tokyo, and I've been doing that for over 7 years straight. So it's pretty awesome. But it all started when I was 16 years old, I fell in love with streetwear, LRG, Stussy, surfing, skating, and this whole culture around it, like graffiti and art. And I didn't have it's your typical rags to riches story. I grew up in Riverside, California, in the hood, single parent lifestyle. So always going through a lot of changes. I went to 14 different schools up until I got to high school. 14? So there was multiple times within 1 year where we would move maybe twice or three times a year. And it all had to do because we're getting evicted. My mom's been in and out of jail my whole life. Still, she just got out of jail probably 4 years ago for certain things that she basically I don't want to get into too much detail with that because that's her life.
Yeah.
But she did everything she can to provide for me. And yeah, man, so it's just going back and forth with both my parents, getting tossed around from different place to different place. When I was young, I realized that the one constant or the problem that made my life not so constant compared to everybody else was the fact that we didn't have money. So I blamed my parents' separation on money. I blamed everything on money. So I was like, when I get old enough, I'm going to do everything that I can to make this money. And luckily, I found my passion when I was 16 years old. And I had this idea of starting a clothing brand because I fell in love with Stussy and the LRGs and different companies around Orange County that were doing it. So I saw these people really crushing it, and they're from the same city, which is awesome. So it was very inspiring. And yeah, man, so starting a clothing brand isn't as easy as you guys think, as everyone thinks. It's probably one of the hardest things ever. And so I have maybe saved up $40 in my bank account. Not even a bank account. I'm 16 years old, so $40. Go to my dad, ask him for help. He's like, Mijo, I don't think I can give you money to do this, but I'll help you in any way, shape, or form. I'll support you, your vision. I already know you can do it. I don't have the money to help you, but I can help you in any other way. That's not financial. So I go to manufacturers, and they tell me there's a minimum in order to produce your t-shirts and your hoodies. You have to invest into 36 pieces, and it's going to come out to about $2,000-$3,000. And I have $40 in my bank, in my pocket. So I'm like, this isn't going to happen. So the first thing that just immediate reaction was, well, I started paying attention to the way these machines worked and how t-shirts were made. So we ended up building a screen printing press, a machine out of wood. and I would
Oh,
I would
you built it.
my dad and my best friend Ivan, yeah,
Jeez.
all three of us. And my dad had a shack in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
We built this wooden press, and I don't know if you guys know about screen printing, but every t-shirt or every hoodie, whatever's like this print right here is made out of one screen. You squeegee it. So I
Mm-hmm.
would hold down the screen with the brick, and we had like 4 different arms. I could only print up to 2 colors. It was very crazy. We would heat gun everything. And yeah, man, little by little, started
Awesome.
selling shirts out of my trunk. We were literally in a shack. People, you know that saying, like, started out in a shack or
Yeah.
whatever? We were legit in a
Like in
shack.
a shack.
And how people say, like, I started slinging shit out of my trunk.
Yeah.
I did that. Well, not, and I didn't even like, it wasn't even a cool thing to do it. It was just, that was the only form of what I could do at the time. I had no
Yeah.
other option. So little by little, I go from selling $10 t-shirts, $15 t-shirts, and we're just growing and growing and growing. My designs start getting around school. I become like the hip thing to wear in school. So I go from like that $40 investment to maybe like $1,000. And look, I just, every brand, everything that I've ever done in life has been completely bootstrapped. I've had no investors, no handouts, no role models. It's all been like me doing the heavy lifting and just never giving up.
But what did you do? Well, a couple of things. One, I think it's crucial and it's important that people hear this because if they go to your social media page, they might see something completely different.
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time on here. Like, because I was a fighter, people see you and judge you under the lights, those 15 minutes. They don't see the training camp, the arguments, the diet, the not being able to go to certain events. They don't see any of that. They judge you and base their judgment off of 15 minutes when you're on TV under the lights, but they don't see anything else. So it's awesome that you get to share this because people are going to base something, they're going to
Yeah.
base a judgment or whatever thought they have of you based on what they see on social media because they
Yep.
don't know you. That's all they know. So it's
Yep.
awesome that you get to share this, and I'm glad that we get to talk about this. The second thing I wanted to ask you is, do you remember your like train of thought? Like, what were you thinking when you were young, thinking that money was the root of all your guys' problems? Because there's other kids like that. There's other little boys and little girls that are going through that. I was going through it. I went through it. I didn't know though. I didn't know like my parents weren't great communicators, and I don't know if it's a Hispanic thing, but like I'm Mexican, and I don't even remember my parents being like, "Oh, your Theo just passed away." It was just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
get dressed up," and you show up and you're at a church, and why are we here? Oh, we're at a funeral. Like they never told us anything, and so, but I knew that we were poor. Like I knew
Yeah.
not to ask
Yeah.
for a candy bar when we were at the gas station.
Yep.
So did you know? Was that communicated to you, and kind of how'd you deal with it growing up?
Yeah, yeah. So you start to wonder, you start to ask the world questions. Like I remember like I don't remember too much of my childhood. I try not to remember because of the way it was, but I do remember having a specific young friend,
Uh-huh.
Tommy and Zach. So it was two, and I remember being like having car trouble on
Mm-hmm.
the way to school. So
Mm.
I would either be late or I would miss school. And I remember when I would get picked up I saw their cars. It wasn't like nothing fancy, no
Yeah,
Mercedes or
yeah.
anything, but they had like a of the year Honda or whatever. When we were driving some beat up piece of shit Corolla that would break down the street
Mm.
like once a week. And so I started noticing these things, and I also noticed that the trophies on the walls, the sports. I don't know too much about sports because
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't afford to put me in sports.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I could do was skateboarding because I was a very small investment of like $25 for a
Yeah.
complete deck that was used, and I could do so much with it. That was the
Mm-hmm.
only form of sport that I grew up in. And so I noticed all these different things. I don't have the trophies on the walls. I don't have a stable home, and you just start to ask some questions like
Yeah.
why don't I have all these certain things? And it's a very normal thing for like minorities or this or just our culture to just accept that that's the normal
Yes.
thing, but it's not nowadays. I hang out with a lot of successful people. I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of rich friends. I've seen the way they grow up and the way they react to stress and problems,
Mm-hmm.
we react a certain way that benefits us. So like I'm always saying this to the people that grow up just like me, that because you went through so much shit and you're still alive and you're still at it, still getting it, you can deal with stress a lot better than most of these other guys that grew up with money or a
Mm-hmm.
stable environment. And you have to use that in your as your advantage. And that's the reason why I'm this successful. I've been doing this for like over 10 years. And throughout the years, I've seen a lot of people that have gotten more shine than I have because they're just more out there. I don't do a lot of talking, I do a lot of action,
Mm-hmm.
and they've gotten praised more, but I've seen them dwindle down, diminish their reputation and fail while I'm still here thriving every single year. And the difference between that is literally the way I grew up. I don't give up. I'm willing to work harder than him. I have a chip on my shoulder. My mom, I still have to provide for my mom. I still have to provide for my siblings. I'm the father figure. They don't have a father figure. So I have this chip on my shoulder where I don't have a plan B, C, or D like these people do. They might have mommy and daddy money. I don't have that. There's no one to take care of me.
Mm.
I'm the captain of the ship, and there's no choice by default. And I use that to motivate me. A lot of people use Tony Robbins, a lot of people use Gary Vee, whatever it is, your form of motivation. But my motivation is, and I should tell everybody this, if you're broke, if you have kids, if you have broke parents, or you're not the best version of yourself, that should be enough motivation to wake up every single day. I have a few million in my bank account
Mm-hmm.
right now. You want to know what time I woke up today? 5 a.m. And the reason why I woke up at 5 a.m. is because I'm fucking so pumped and excited to start new shit and get at it. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel content. I don't feel comfortable. I feel more excited than ever. This year, I've worked harder than I ever have in my entire life, but I enjoyed every single second of
I
it.
think that's what's neat about it. That's how, because my follow up question was going to be, how do you stay motivated? And I think you kind of just answered it. You know, you're looking forward to new things. You're looking forward to creating, and I think that's what's neat about being in the industry that you're in, is that it's never stagnant.
Yeah,
You could have a badass shirt that sold, a million times, but you can still come up with a new design with something more
yeah,
creative. There's always something to do, and so that kind of keeps you on your toes. But
yeah,
now, so going back to your story a little bit, you guys were you made the screen. You guys
yep.
are doing that. You jump up in high school. You become the thing to wear. What happens next?
Yeah, so we're like running this whole thing in high school,
Mm-hmm.
building street team, building our credibility. And I at this point I don't have a job or anything. This is what I'm doing full time and this is what I'm
Nice.
focused on. So I'm like going to school with like paint all over my hands and like doing the
Yeah.
12-hour days, going to
Mm-hmm.
school, then after school, this is what I was focused on. So I wasn't like the big partier in high school. I was just
Yeah.
getting to work, doing everything that I can to build this clothing empire. It wasn't up until so I moved out of my dad's house at 17. I moved from
Mm-hmm.
Orange County to Buena Park. And my cousin Caesar Peach, he took me in and I literally slept on his floor. So he had a 1 bedroom apartment in Buena Park and I would sleep on the floor and he would sleep on the floor too because he didn't have a bed. He couldn't afford it either. So I was just grinding it out. I something happened where some security guard got a hold of me and ended up connecting me with Angels Baseball.
Oh
And I
wow.
took a meeting with Angels Baseball, and they basically said that we're in need of a wardrobe assistant. We know that you're really really technical with clothing.
Uh huh.
We believe you're going to be like a star one day, and we would love to hire you. So that was my first and last job that I've ever had in my life. So I took that job and my boss at the time, he was prepping me to take over his job because he was eventually going to retire.
Uh huh.
I had a different vision, obviously, but this was the first time where I was actually getting paychecks, started making like maybe $600 every 2 weeks or whatever at the time. And I was able, like, this is where I'm starting to get like actual money to fund this brand, this
Yeah.
idea. And yeah, I just invested every single dollar little by little. I just started doing bigger things, and eventually it came to a point where I studied everything that there is to know about clothing, about the people that made it before me. And if you're a musician or a rapper, you have to study the people that have done it before you, laid the blueprint, know the history. And that's exactly what I did. I might have not had all the experience because I didn't have the money, but
Mm-hmm.
I've had all the experience as far as me learning and mastering the craft that I wanted to do. It was just the money part. So I remember going up to a manufacturer around this time, and I told them, I was like, look, I don't have thousands of dollars, but I know this so well. I laid out the whole entire plan, pitched them basically like a trailer vision of what I was going to do. And he was down to buy the blanks, print all the stuff, and fund the entire collection. And I just had to sell. And we made a deal where he was going to make a percentage off of every sale of what the products that he printed.
Yeah.
And so I worked out that amazing deal. We had a launch at his warehouse. Day one, I had like 400 people show up, sold out of everything. Literally sold out of everything.
And how'd you market that?
It's street team. So I started building a lot of street team.
Okay.
And people talk about like e-commerce too. I was really heavy with like social media at the time.
Yeah.
MySpace was like really big.
Yeah.
I learned how to use Big Cartel. This was before like Shopify. This was the beginning. Big Cartel, MySpace. I started creating bots where they would message, comment, like people's like posts and post on different things, like
Mm-hmm.
just doing everything I can. I've always been a producer on social media
Mm-hmm.
versus a consumer. And I learned that very early on that this was a tool of how to get attention from all over the world,
Yeah.
not just my little city. So when you do those things, you start to build a reputation and a fan base, make connections,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually one person will show up for you with their 5 friends, and it's just
You just
catapults and snowball
duplicate
effects.
that.
Yeah, so that's why we sold out.
So
that day.
when you say you were studying and gaining knowledge, what did you do specifically? Were you watching videos, reading books, talking to people? Like what did you do? What was your journey
people
like?
have it too easy these days. Now there's like courses, YouTube
Uh-huh.
videos. There's so much shit. Back in the day, it was very hard to find like there wasn't like a course of how
Mm-hmm.
to build a clothing brand or how to brand or how to market. The only thing I had was videos and inspiration of the lifestyle of the people that like had these multi-million-dollar clothing brands. That's all I can get. As far as like doing the clothing brand, I interned for my uncle where he had a screen printing shop, a
Mm-hmm.
very early screen printing shop, and I would learn how to burn screens, print t-shirts, catch them, do everything I can to learn this type of business. So I learned how to build a team, some semi marketing on social media, and I learned the production side of things.
So you're actually doing it.
Doing it,
That's why that's
physically
how you
doing it.
learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
physically doing it. So experiencing it. And that's why when I came to that manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
he knew it. He knew everything. Like he could just see it in my eyes
Yeah.
and my heart that this was for reals. Then the rest was history after that. I rebranded my t-shirt company, was called Feather.
Mm-hmm.
And little by little I started like getting on Karmaloop. These big websites started picking me up. I started going from like one boutique store to a mall, and I believe we were in like 15 different stores. Stores were the thing back then, like retail.
Yeah. Yes.
But then Facebook, I took advantage of Facebook once it started
Mm-hmm.
like building up to what it is, and started like paying influencers, like people that like looked really good, that had like thousands and thousands of likes on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, started paying them for promotion on my products and giving me shout outs to my business page. And little by little I started getting these online sales. Then after Feather, I started Tuned in Tokyo. And the reason why I started Tuned in Tokyo and the reason why I gave up on Feather was because I couldn't identify who my customer was. It was
Mm.
in streetwear culture, you see Diamond, the Hundreds, and all these different brands. When you ask them like who their customer is, they're really not going to define it. to a targeting like basis.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna say things that are way too broad, where they're Asian, black, Mexican, white, surfers, skaters, snowboarders. That's not how, when it comes to marketing, you have to be very precise
Mm-hmm.
on who your customer is. And so when understood that there was no way to scale this thing because I couldn't identify who my customer was, I wanted to rebrand that and start a new one called Tuned in Tokyo, where I knew who my customer was exactly. So it's bridging the gap from streetwear to this car enthusiast Fast and the Furious world where people love Japanese tuner cars.
Mm-hmm.
I saw what LiveFit did with like their brand bridging
Yeah.
the gap between streetwear and the fitness world. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And then the rest was history. That's when I actually started making a lot of money. Um, and yeah, went full time.
Was it hard to realize or to make that shift? Because when you create something, it's your baby,
Hmm.
and then knowing that you created Feather and then having a transition, or was there a sense of comfort knowing that because you couldn't identify your customer base, you had to do something else?
Yeah, there comes a time where it's like I don't you've learned enough. I through Feather, I've networked enough.
Uh-huh.
I made a name for myself. I met celebrities, rappers, and all these different people that I would have never met. So I took it as a sign of a good thing, but now it's time for me to actually reap some rewards from
Yeah.
it. There's nothing like people are too caught up with trying to look rich than actually being rich. And so I was tired. I was like, I don't care how I look online. It's time for me to actually make money. Everybody thinks Feather is 100 times bigger than it actually is when it wasn't.
Yeah.
So the moment I switched over and I niched down to a certain community that I understood, I grew up with Hondas in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I understood who these people were. They didn't have their own brand. They didn't have their own lifestyle. They had merch. I love my Honda. I love
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
They didn't have an actual clothing brand. They're rocking all these different types of clothing brands. So I made one for them. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it was just game over, man.
And what did you do? Did you do anything different as far as marketing, building a street team, creatively designing things? What was the shift in that? Because you're still in the same industry, if you will,
Yep.
but your demographic is now different. Your
Um,
designs are now different. How did you pivot?
yeah, I want to touch on like that. I still didn't have enough money to scale a big brand at the
Mm,
time.
okay.
And so at this time, I'm graphic designing, doing album covers or mixtape covers for artists. I'm designing for other brands, making clothes for other, like everyone. The cool thing about Feather, it kind of showcased like my creativity. And everyone, the number one question I would always get is, yo, where do you get your stuff made?
Mm-hmm.
So I started sending a lot of people to my manufacturer, and my manufacturer started slowing production down on my collections because I was just referring too many people. And I just got this idea where, like, you know what? I'm just going to play middleman so I can control like the
Yeah.
production line and make some money out of it. I didn't realize that I was actually starting like an apparel manufacturing, like
Mm-hmm.
consulting business, but I ended up doing that.
Nice.
And that business is what funded Tuned in Tokyo.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's so we were when I started Tuned in Tokyo, I was doing apparel manufacturing
Uh-huh.
for people. We got in 2015, we ended up buying like an embroidery machine, a screen printing machine, invested like $150,000 into our own like warehouse and
That's
production.
awesome.
And at this time, I'm still like zoned in on making this clothing brand work. Like that was the dream. Apparel manufacturing wasn't the dream.
So what do you do? Talk into that. What do you do? What does your day look like, or what did your day look like when you were doing that? Because you were growing, essentially having to grow
Yeah.
a clothing company and then a manufacturing company. Did you split the time evenly? Did you say, okay, from 6 to 12, I'm working on this. From 12 to whatever time, I'm working on that. Like, how did you do it?
Yeah, like obviously the apparel manufacturing business was working more than our clothing. So at this point in time, this is what, like, although I still had a dream, I had to make money.
Yeah.
The majority of my time throughout the day was working on the apparel manufacturing side, and I believe that you have to have a really great business partner in every business.
Mm,
As I've never done anything alone. I've always had business
that's
partners,
awesome.
so it was really good to see, like, or it was really cool to see us like divide our time equally into two different types of businesses. So I would focus more on the clothing. He would focus more on the apparel manufacturing side. But at the same time, the majority of our time was going towards what was actually paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And there came a time where we went from like 5 orders a day to 25 orders a day to 35 orders a day. And eventually I was the first one to jump ship, where I was like, I'm done with apparel manufacturing. Let's
Mm-hmm.
not give up on it. You do that. I'll handle the clothing side. And eventually we made enough money with the clothing side that we just gave up on apparel manufacturing.
Nice. How does that make you feel knowing that you created something from start to finish and someone else wants to buy it? Like does that feeling of like gratitude ever go away?
I guess you get used to it over time, but what you said is really important because a lot of these like digital marketer dudes or
Mm-hmm.
e-com drop shipper motherfuckers, like all they do is they focus on numbers and sales where they don't actually humanize like their orders.
Mm-hmm.
There's a person that's watching your content. There's a person experiencing the unboxing and putting on your like the way they feel, the way they experience your clothing. People forget those things, or your
Yeah.
products. People literally forget those things. They're so focused on like refreshing and seeing every single order, their Shopify notifications, whatever it is that they're doing. And so what you said is really important. And I still get pumped to see it. I see it too much, so I kind of got a little numb to it, but it's really, really cool to see like it randomly. Like I enjoy it more out in the street or something when I'm
Mm-hmm.
at a gas station and someone's like pumping gas with one of my t-shirts, or
That's
especially
dope.
where I'm at Disneyland and someone's rocking our shoes. Like I
Mm-hmm.
do, those are the ones where like I kind of point it
That's
out,
cool.
and I love when someone else points it out. So like either my girl or whatever, a cousin or someone, and I'm walking around, they're like, "Yo, that person's wearing your stuff." I'm like, "Oh shit,
That's awesome.
yeah." So
Cause I
it's
get
pretty cool.
pumped. I'll get one order for like a mug. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's funny. It's so interesting because we're going through that now. We work with another company that's print on demand, and so the quality's not that great, and so I'll have to pick your brain after we do this interview. But to know that you kind of stuck it out and that you went through the whole process is a testament not only to your work ethic but to your character. And so it's awesome to see that you made something out of it, because
yep,
a lot of times I feel like a lot of people give up right before
yeah.
something big is about to happen. A lot of people will quit. But then what have you ever dealt with something where it's not successful? Like when your best isn't good enough.
Many times. I don't think that I've ever felt my business has ever failed, like the
Mhm.
businesses I've ever started,
Mhm.
but we made tons of mistakes.
Yeah.
Big ones, like ones that like this year we're fucked. We're going out
Yeah.
of business. But somehow a miracle happens, dude. It's the weird guys, it is the weirdest thing ever, but there's days where like there's times I remember like around 2016 where a miracle had to happen, where we had to sell our machines because we're going all in on our brands and we can't afford to run both businesses. And somehow someone comes knocking on our door randomly and is interested in buying our machines like in 2 weeks. It's the
Yeah.
weirdest thing ever. So maybe God dealt me like they maybe God like is prepping me for something big. Maybe he played a little harder on me than most people, dealt me with the harder cards. But I feel like he puts you through things that he knows like you can
That you
get
can
through.
handle. And then you
Yeah.
reap what you sow. So all those years of hard work and never getting anywhere, never feeling like you're getting anywhere,
Yeah.
and then continuing to work and grinding and grinding and grinding and never really finding that light at the end of the tunnel, will pay off in different ways.
Feels good too because
Yeah.
like I've made it this far in life. I've never burned a bridge with anyone, made anyone feel some type of way about me. and I don't owe anyone any favors. I don't owe
Yeah.
no debt to anyone. I
Yeah.
didn't ask for no favors. So I control my destiny. Nobody can take this away from me. No one can. I can get canceled today and it doesn't affect my businesses,
Yeah.
doesn't affect anything. They don't know who I am really. So to me, I'm in such a great place. And most people say like, how come you're like really humble and stuff like that? Well, it's because I had nothing. Like
Because you experienced it. You
I
came from
fucking
that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
have nothing.
And you
So
had to
it's
work
like
for it.
I appreciate everything I have,
Yeah.
man. I have some really cool shit and I appreciate it. Like
Is there something that you do every day to have that perspective or to keep that perspective on a daily basis?
kind of life humbles me, you know? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
still going through issues on the family personal side
Yeah.
where it definitely humbles me. I'll get a call once every 2 months to literally remind me that I still need to work hard.
Yeah.
So that's in a way, looking back, I don't know if I would have worked this hard if I was comfortable.
You probably
Like
no, you probably wouldn't have. It's not
I
I don't
think I
know.
am who I am today because of all the shit that I went through.
100%. Yeah. One of my old coaches and friends is, Mark Munoz always tells me like, hey man, you're everything you've gone through in the past has helped shape and mold you into the person that you are today.
Yep.
And so I don't think it's because people are, oh, do you have regrets? Like, no. No, I've had deals in business fall through and things that should have happened that didn't happen, with the podcast and things like that. But then I met Ben and and it's like, no, everything happened for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that. And so, not that you need it, but if I can give you one piece of advice, would be just to keep going.
Yeah,
Stay
thanks.
humble, keep that perspective, because one, you never know who you're gonna meet, and two, you never know who you're gonna impact. Someone listening to this show and being like, man, Frankie had nothing. He
Yeah.
grew up just like me, and because he kept working and just found other ways around things that you couldn't buy a freaking screen printer machine at that time. But what did you do? You figured it out. You
Yep.
saw how it worked. You figured out how to build one, and then little by little you started growing. And that's why I want people to hear your story. It's not like you're an overnight success. It happened over time.
Yep.
And
Yeah. And like I post a lot of screenshots where people will see me do like $1 million in sales
mm-hmm.
in 1 hour or $100,000 days, and I remind people like, hey guys, this is like the last 10 years of me working my
Yeah,
ass
yeah,
off.
yep.
It's not like I just magically started this today and this
Mm-hmm.
is the results. Like I just never gave up. I bootstrapped, and I hope that I inspire people that and the beautiful part about this, man, is I'm a open book and fully transparent. Like I recorded the whole entire process of how I did things
Mm-hmm.
and what I did to make it this far. So it's been really cool to see, like looking back at all my posts, all the things that I've said that I was going to do and ended up actually doing it.
Is there a part of you that feels like it's your duty, like almost your obligation to give back to this community that
One
helped make a way for you?
Dude, 1000%. This is the coolest thing ever. So I had an event. That's
Mm-hmm.
why Nat's here. I had an event like 2 weeks ago where I threw it and I didn't it was free, completely free for all the people that have supported me. Didn't
Yeah.
matter if you pay me $1, if you somehow you bought something from me, doesn't matter. You were invited. And I had like probably like around 150 people come through.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of like my friends that were in the entrepreneur space. This is the first time where I've actually like met my followers in person.
Oh wow.
Um and it was really cool because every single person that like came up to me, and there was like the entire event, they said what you just said, that I inspired the shit out of them. And
That's
what was
awesome.
awesome, the best part about it is I've been a part of like learn this. I'm always learning. I'm always doing everything
Yeah.
I can to learn. Like I'm not done learning, you know. I'm not old enough, or I don't think I'll ever feel like I'm the best at anything.
Mm-hmm.
I want to continue to learn. So I'm always joining like different like masterminds or helping somebody that is in a part of a mastermind and going and speaking, doing everything I can to just help people. And I noticed that the ones that charge $1,000 to $10,000 to be a part of this social circle, there's not a lot of culture in there. It's
Yeah.
primarily like 90% white people, and it does not look diverse. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the people that can actually afford it. So when I threw my event and I saw I remember standing on stage, looking in the crowd, and I saw how diverse it was. There was blacks, Mexicans, Asians,
Yeah.
white people. It was completely diverse. And this is exactly why I do this for, because I want people that grew up like me, look like me, to have just that ounce of inspiration that they know that they can take on and
Yeah.
hopefully change their life.
Well, there's an example there. You know, like when I grew up, I used to love Oscar de la Hoya, Julio Cesar
Mm,
Chavez, and I never saw fighters like me.
yep,
Never saw heavyweight Mexican fighters.
yep,
They're always big black people or big old white dudes. There's never like someone that looked like me that I can look up to, you know, and have an example of. So the fact that you're doing that and that people can see someone like me, oh man, like he looks like me, he grew up like me,
yeah,
he understands me, and he has this success. I think it's crucial, and I think it's so important for people to share it. You know, a lot of times I've ran in some circles and there's some wealthy people and they don't share their secrets. They're like, no,
yeah,
this is
I,
my secrets. And it's like, why? That's not going to help anyone. One, your industry's not going to grow because you're not going to penetrate any new market. You know, two, if your industry grows and you already own, let's just say hypothetically, 10% of the market share, you're only going to get more.
yeah,
So like, why not help people? Help build them up. You
yep,
know, it's the one thing that I feel like that culture is missing. It's
yep,
everything's mine. This is staying in my family. It's my secret. Now, if it's like a restaurant and they have a family recipe, like I get that. You know, that's understandable. But if it's just your techniques, because it doesn't take away your work ethic. You know,
no,
your success is going to be based on your work ethic and how hard you work at it. There's ways to do it smarter. You know, there's different ways to overcome things, but the fact that they don't want to share it is mind-boggling to me. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to?
yeah, or just the fact that you can clearly see people that look like you out there and know that it's possible is enough. You know, the
Yes.
rest is gonna happen. Now, if like they want to share like their mistakes that they've had, the lessons that they've learned, and how they are so successful, it just impacts this culture 10 times, 100
Mm-hmm.
times more. But it's awesome to see like people like us showcase and be able to like be a voice of our community and culture. And that's what I'm trying to do this for, man. I'm literally just trying to give back. I'm in a good place now where before I was constantly chasing money, and now it's the complete opposite. Money kind of just chases me. Opportunities kind of just
Mm-hmm.
knock on my door. But I mean, at the same time, I get to help as many people out as possible.
Well, I think to piggyback on that, yes, it's crucial. It's important that people see people like us, you know, have that platform because, like you said earlier, like you use it as an excuse to mess up.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're poor, and so I'm gonna go join a gang.
Yep.
I'm gonna go tag. I'm gonna go steal. And you don't do the right things that help you get out of that mindset. You know, it's so easy to make excuses and to say no because we're going through this. These are my only options. And then you look at examples like yourself, or if you look at someone in the black community like Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman
Mm,
grew up in Compton.
hmm.
He went to Compton High School, got a full ride scholarship to go play at Stanford University out of Compton, played in the NFL for the Seahawks, won Super Bowls. Like, and he was in the middle of Compton in the worst circumstances.
Yep.
You look at people like Venus and Serena Williams with the same
Yep.
story. Like
Yep.
there's people that choose not to give into their circumstances, not give into their surroundings, and go make something out of themselves.
Yep.
So I think it's awesome, man. And you know, we'd love to have you back. I know you got places to be and things to do. So if there's people want to get a hold of you, if they want to go visit your websites and go support you, where can they find you?
Best place to follow me or keep up with me is on Instagram at
Okay.
Frankie Quiroz, Quiirroz. And yeah, you guys could reach out to me there.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, Frankie, thank you so much for your
Hey,
time, man.
thank you, bro.
Appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And remember, guys, that everything was impossible till someone did it.
All right.